We've been in this conversation called An Introduction to Love. We're walking through a letter in the New Testament from Paul. It is one of 7 undisputed letters of Paul, so we're all a scholarship pretty confident that this is Paul who wrote it. Some scholars have said arguably this is the greatest literary work Paul has done, this right here in 1 Corinthians 13. And so I want to get back in it, and we're just walking through it. Probably heard this text at weddings or whatever, but it's not a wedding text. There's like a massive argument, split, fighting, division going on in this collective that Paul started in 51. He's writing the letter at 55, Common Era. And so I want to pick back up. This is 1 Corinthians 13, and we're just making our way, people. And we're having, I don't know if you're having a good time, but I'm having a good time with it, all right? And so I want to read this, and then we'll add one more like Greek phrase today, and then we'll talk about it. So this is 1 Corinthians 13, verse 1. You probably have it memorized by now, but it goes like this. If I speak in the tongues of humans and of angels, but do not have love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith as to remove mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give away all my possessions to the poor, and if I hand over my body so that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Paul shifts the writing, and he begins to use 15 verbs to describe what this love is. He says, here's Paul's words, this love that I'm talking about, it's patient. Love is kind. Love is not envious or boastful or arrogant or rude. Love does not insist on its own way. Love is not irritable. It keeps no record of wrong. And then here's where we'll pick up today, all right? Love does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices in the truth. All right, so let's get into this last little Greek phrase. Again, Paul is just using these verbs to try to give description, like a finger pointing to the moon, to try to help us understand when he talks about love, what is it exactly he's talking about. And to be clear, Paul says, love does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but it rejoices in the truth. Now, I just want to do two things today, and then school's out for summer, all right? I'll see you in 2 weeks, all right? But here's 2 things. First of all, what is Paul talking about? To get at that, I want to just briefly talk about what he's not talking about, or at least what I don't think he's talking about, and then to be clear, what I think he's talking about. And obviously, since we're talking about truth, you need to understand my interpretations of Paul's writings are not truth necessarily, all right? They're not equal with truth necessarily. I am one of the few probably pastors that you'll hear stand up and just tell you this. This is my interpretation of an ancient letter written, all right? And I think we have to be really careful and clear because interpretations aren't necessarily equal to the truth, all right? So I want to get into that. That's the very thing that I actually want to talk about. Now, to get at this, I want to read you a tweet that I read probably, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago and told you I was going to come back to kind of dissect it a little bit. Because it fits really well with what Paul is saying here. Now, I got on one of the social media networks some time ago. It's been months ago. And I was, at the time, writing about love because I was reading this passage and I was just being consumed with it. I had my own experiences with love of what I think Paul is talking about when he talks about agape love, and just overwhelmed with it and the way in which this love operated, because it operates in a way that's non-judgmental, but yet because it's non-judgmental and it's present and it's patient and kind, like it has a way of transforming you into the likeness of love itself. And so I just wrote a statement, it was just kind of in passing. I said, I know of no greater force than love. It can soften the hardest heart. It can shatter the strongest addiction. It can melt the mightiest ego. It can remove the tallest barrier. That's all I wrote. Now, if there is a tweet that, in my opinion, would not get criticism it would probably be that. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like if there was ever anything you could say publicly and everyone, by and large, almost everyone would agree on, I would think, this is just my hunch, because I know when I'm writing something on social media, I am fully aware that this is like a radio platform, basically. You're sending it out to people. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but did you know people have opinions? This may be new for some of you. And some of those opinions, they hold them really close. And they're really passionate about their opinions. So anytime you go public with your little radio station and it goes out, I am fully aware, all right, we are aware, even as a collective, if something might be a little bit controversial. And I have actually posted things that I'm like, this is a little bit controversial, or it needs a little nuance, but I'm going to push it out there because maybe it will help, and maybe it can help some people. So you push it, and I fully expect there to be like criticism or feedback or whatever. I have to tell you, this is one of those tweets that when I pushed it out, I just walked away because I was like, I don't need to monitor the feedback because this isn't that controversial, all right? It's kind of basic elementary talk here, all right? It's very simple. There is no greater force than love. It can soften the hardest heart, shatter the strongest addiction, melt the mightiest ego, and remove the tallest barrier. And every human says, right on, all right? Yes, love is patient, it's kind, and it can do things that nothing else can. That's wonderful, yes. Turns out not everyone agrees with that, all right? And so there were a few responses, and one of which was this. And it came from someone who's, back in my previous life, I spoke at their church because I traveled for 10 years back when I was conservative fundamentalist. I grew up Southern Baptist, and so that was my first world. And then Jesus saved me from that world, which is just a beautiful liberation, all right? I always tell people to this day, there's nothing like salvation, but there's nothing like being saved from the Christianity you were raised in, all right? And so my previous life, some pastor responded back, and he said this, all right? So these are his words. He said, at Cody, love without truth affirms us but denies our flaws. Truth without love is harsh and has no compassion for the person's flaws. So to be clear, Cody, we need both. It's a shame the church is only focused on love and not love and truth. And then he cited 1 Corinthians 13, verse 6, because there's always a proof text. And then he said, at the very end, I hope you are well. And then he used two words, go God. So, a couple things. On a very basic level, you've heard me talk about this, but it's a good reminder. I have a selective amount of energies. I have chosen in my life to give my energies to the people that want to be in this space, you all. So I do my best to not give you leftovers, but to give you everything I have. On a Sunday gathering, all throughout the week, I hang out with many of you. We have drinks, food, whatever. We work through your situations, your problems, all of life. This is what we do together. I want my best energies for you, all right? So because of that, I just don't give my energies to things like that. Now, I know people who do. I know people who, like, it's they wake up every morning and their number one goal is, I'm going to tweet as much as I possibly can, stir up as much shenanigans as I possibly can, and I'm going to fire back, and I am going to put on blast. Every person needs to be put on blast. And I'm telling you, I don't even think love judges them. I think love is fully present in that. For me, I would just tell you, that feels not like a very good use of my energies, all right? So I just don't give it attention because I don't want to give it energy. Do you know what I'm saying? And so just to help you a little bit, if there is something in your life that you're like, it just won't go away, I can help you. There is a way to actually like drain the energy of it. And here it is. Don't give it any attention. Okay? Like if you want to drain the energy in something, pay no mind to it. Move on with your life. All right? The problem is so many of us, we don't know what to do because we haven't really dealt with the ego, which is a series we've got coming up. And so part of us like our ego is like, I can't just walk away. It's like a drug. You're like, I gotta say something, right? You can. That's fine. But just know the moment you give it attention is the moment you're empowering it again. All right? And so I start there to just say, I just don't give it energy. And the second thing, and you know this, I've said this 1,000 times, I'm clear on whose opinion matters to me right now in my life. And this person isn't one of them. Okay? Like, I'm clear on whose opinion matters to me. I have a group of people in my life, their opinion matters to me. If they tell me something, I course correct. I trust them, I believe them. All right? They are safe humans. Do you know what I'm talking about? Get you a safety team around you that aren't afraid to speak the truth that you need to hear. And you won't question it because you know they have your best interest in mind. Do you know what I'm saying? All right. Now, we could stop the sermon there and just say most of us probably don't have that, and it will be good for us. And maybe that's a part of the reason we're here. Maybe we can do that together with each other. Now, all of that said, that's a disclaimer. Let me get to the content for just a minute. All right. First of all, anytime someone, and I'm helping all of us here, but anytime someone comes at you with a, quote, truth, unquote, typically what you will find is when they come at you with a truth, they'll always have what is called a proof text. Do you understand what I'm saying? So, you know this, someone will make a claim, and then they'll usually look at you and they'll say, 1 Corinthians 13:6. All right? So they're basing their claim, that is truth, on authority or the Bible. Because, check it out, that Bible, the moment they make a claim, the moment they have a proof text, what they are trying to say, and what most of them actually do say is, the Bible, this isn't me, the Bible says, right? You've heard that, right? First of all, we've talked about this, the Bible doesn't say anything. The Bible reads, it's a book, and every book requires interpretation. So, I think it's clear that we've got to get down to nuance when we use phrases like this, okay? So, let me get to what this individual is getting at. And I start here by saying our opinions, our interpretations of the proof text, our ideologies, and even our theology is not the same as truth, okay? Remember, too, Paul's words right up above 1 Corinthians 13:6. And it is very clear, as Paul writes it, that our truth-telling is annoying noise if it does not embody love. Okay? I also want to remind you, we can make truth an idol. And we can use it to kind of hide our disdain for our enemies, for those we disagree with, for those who aren't like us. But Paul has just reminded us in the first 3 verses here that true love is about how we treat people who disagree with us. Okay? And so when I received this response, I thought about it, and I actually contemplated because I thought, isn't that interesting? Because it's actually really clever. Okay? What you have is an individual who's separating truth and love. And this individual says, love without truth affirms us but denies our flaws. But truth without love is harsh and no compassion for the person's flaws. So we need both. And then he goes on to write, it's a shame the church is only focused on love and not both. I'm going to make a statement, and tell me you've probably heard this before. How many of you have ever heard this phrase? I am just speaking the truth in love. How many of you, if you've heard that, slip your hand, I want to know who I'm talking to. How many of you have heard that? Yep. How many of you that feels like they love you when you hear it, right? Yeah. I have never, this is my experience, never encountered anyone who says, I'm just giving you the truth in love, and actually felt loved in that moment. You see what I'm saying? All right. Now, I want to talk about this phrase for just a minute, and I want to get at what I think Paul is getting at here, and why I think my friend is misunderstanding what Paul is saying here, okay? When you hear that phrase, I'm just speaking the truth in love, I want to get at perhaps what's behind that. First of all, you need to know that phrase did not originate with, like, conservatives. It originated with Paul, all right? Well, let me rephrase that. It originated in Ephesians, which isn't necessarily an undisputed letter of Paul. So someone is writing in the name of Paul, and they use that phrase, speaking the truth in love. All right? But I want to get at that phrase for just a minute. Now, there's a book that I want to recommend to you if you're interested in going further on this whole subject. It's called Love Matters More, and it's from Jared Bias. I love Jared's work, and he wrote a fantastic book that I've read when I was kind of preparing for this series. And I love it. Love matters more. So I want to read a couple quotes to you. And at the end of the talk, I want to give you a story that he shares in the book that I think it's going to be worth coming for because I'm still laughing about it. And I love it. And my God, it's like right now of all times in our country, we need to hear this story. All right. So that's where we're heading. Now, let me start with a quote that he wrote about that phrase, speaking the truth in love. Here's what he says. As we've already seen, truth can be a tool. It can be used to build up or tear down, to heal or to harm. If our idea of truth doesn't include prioritizing love, if it's just about facts, it isn't true in the broader sense. In my experience, when the phrase speaking the truth in love is used, rarely does the person hearing it feel loved. Instead, it's most often used as a way to convince someone that they are being loved even when it doesn't feel that way. It's not often used of someone heavily invested in collaborating with someone in their struggle, but as a way to lob hurtful opinions, walk away, and feel guilt-free. God, I mean, have you experienced that? That last line is what got me. It is often used of someone heavily invested in collaborating, is not often used heavily invested in collaborating with someone in their struggle, but as a way to lob hurtful opinions, walk away, and feel guilt-free. It's like a slam dunk, right? It's like, oh, I got the truth, boom, right in your face, and say, oh, you know what? I'm just speaking the truth in love. And we do that just to release our own conscience in guilt. Because somewhere deep down within us, we know we need to utter that phrase to make ourselves feel good about it because we actually did not do whatever we did or say whatever we said in actual love, right? So if you're ever in a situation and you find yourself saying, well, it's just the truth in love, right? But the moment you hear that phrase, pause and just give yourself notice going, yeah, but does this feel like love? Is this actually love? Here's what I have discovered in my life, and this is my experience. The people who talk the most about truth, or even the people who talk the most about speaking truth in love, are typically those who don't know a lot about love. Usually, if you hear someone who talks a lot about truth, if you get inside of that, what you find is that they're using the very idea of truth, just like oppressors use the idea of forgiveness, to justify and or to convince that their ideology, opinions, and interpretations are equal with the truth. So all I'm telling you is in a moment, in a season where it is so hard to figure out what is true and what is not true. Anybody else feeling me on that, all right? Can I just share a little bit of a story? I don't know if you know this, but I live in America. And I am an American citizen. I am so an American citizen, I was born in Florida, all right? And arguably that is a different country, but it is a part of America, all right? I was born in Florida. I've lived in Alabama for 4 years. You don't get any more American than Alabama. And I've lived in Webb, Alabama, which is right outside of Dothan, Alabama. You don't get any more American than Webb, Alabama, all right? I've lived in East Tennessee, Johnson City, Tennessee. Do you know where that's at? You don't get any more American than the Smoky Mountains, all right? I have lived for 43 years. Never in my 43 years of existence have I ever seen more chaos in our country than this very moment. That's my 43 years. Now, some of you live longer, and you're like, bro, this is nothing compared to what it used to be, all right? I'll take your word for it. Glad I wasn't born then, all right? For me right now, I'm like, wow, what a time to be alive. And it's so strange because on any given week, if you're like me, something happens. I'm out minding my own business, and then my phone has a text, and I look down, and it's some other thing that's happened. Do you know what I'm talking about? And I look at it, and I'm like, well, that's interesting. I put it down. I go about my day, and then at some point, as the day is kind of, dwindling down, I will pull out my phone, and I'll go to my news sources, all right? And I've got several of them. I do my best to not stay in an echo chamber, all right? And so I have several of them, and I'll go and I'll start reading. I don't know if you're aware of this, but did you know that you can find any and every opinion on any given subject on any given time immediately on your phone? I'm telling you the truth that what you look for, you will find is more true now than I've ever realized it. What you look for, you will find. Rest assured, if you're in here and you're like, I have a thought, I wonder if that was staged. I can assure you, you can find someone who believes it was staged. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm saying, I've realized now more than ever, and I'm not sure if I'm just waking up to it, if it's always been this way, or if the algorithms are training all of us, right? But I realized, like, over the last couple of weeks, because there's been, like, I'm told some things that have happened politically all over the place. And so I got on, and I start realizing, oh my goodness, even some of the people that I respect and admire, like even those guys, I mean, this person believes this person believes this. No, this is the truth. This is what happened. That's a pack of lies. That's truth. Nope, that's truth. I watched the debate recently. There was a presidential debate. Are you familiar with this? So we're like, yes, we are. I watched this debate, and then afterward, I got on with people I admire and respect that are like journalists and things, and it was so interesting. I watched two people on the same team. They could not agree on what was a statement of truth and what was not a statement of truth. Can we throw this out here together? Is anyone else a little concerned that right now no one even knows what the truth is anymore? Like, and then it's like, well, just fact check. Well, they fact check, and the way they fact check is like on Google. Do you know what I'm talking about? And so now Google is handling what is true and what is not true. And then you can actually look at people, and then one person's like, no, this is true. I have evidence, receipts, this is true. And then another one's like, no, it's not true. I have evidence and truth. And then it's like the average lay person, no way you have a chance of knowing who to believe and who not to believe. Not a shot. What are you going to do? I'm going to call into work this week because I need to find out what was true. All right? Not happening. Not happening. So the question is, who do you believe? How do you know? How do you know what's truth and what's not? And there's some argument to say that we right now are living in a post-truth culture. And people, when you start talking about truth, it gets real weird because it's like, is there truth? Is there not truth? Is it your truth, my truth? And then you've got conversations about relativism. Is there actually even truth, or is all truth hinged on where you're at in your social intersection? And then you start asking some large questions. I hear people all the time, there's no such thing as absolute truth. Well, that's a claim of absolute truth. You know what I'm saying? So if you're saying there's no such thing as absolute truth, I'm telling you, you can't make that claim because that is a statement of absolute truth. Doesn't work that way, right? And so when you start getting into truth, it gets real wild and crazy. And what I love is in the midst of our culture right now, and this is where we are, by the way, this is where we are. And I'm embracing it. I'm not resisting. I'm embracing it. But we live in a time where no one knows the truth. And we're living in a time where some people don't even believe there is truth. And we're living in a time where those leaders that are clever enough can leverage truth, the word truth, the idea truth, and here's what's even more amazing, and this is where it gets real sticky. All right, check this out. Maybe you've experienced this. I'm just giving illustrations here. Have you ever heard anyone make a claim, like the example we used earlier, and then in the name of truth, what they'll do is they'll go to a particular text, all right? So it doesn't even necessarily have to be the Bible. In Christianity, we would use the Bible. We'd be like, hey, here's my proof text. What you're doing in that moment is you're relying on the Bible to be your authority that it is truth. Some people use the Constitution. You know what I mean? Another sacred text. So you go to the sacred text, you pull out something, you say, here's what the Constitution says. Turns out, even in the Constitution, it requires interpretation. So then you have to start asking questions. Whose interpretation is closer to the truth than others' interpretations? Do you feel that? Do you feel in our country right now how slippery it all is? You're like, well, technically, all men were created equal. And then just this week, I heard a politician say, yeah, it doesn't say they were born equal. They were created equal. And I'm like, whoa, hold on. What? Check this out. Christians are no different. We're doing the exact same thing. We're going to an ancient text that was written a long time ago, and we're taking one word going, well, technically, Paul says. And I have to tell you, I am a little concerned. I am a little concerned as a 43-year-old man, the pastor of a local church, if our culture, society arrives at a place where truth no longer exists. I am concerned. And I do believe in absolute truth. I'm not fuzzy on it. I believe there's one absolute truth, and I believe all truth emanates from that absolute truth. And so, sometimes you'll hear people leverage certain text. In spiral dynamics, they call that traditional stage, right? So in spiral dynamics, the truth kind of works its way up as we evolve and grow. You have the tribal stage where the truth of the power was in the group. So it's like a democracy, people came together. But then they realized the tribes were getting killed so that they need something larger. So they moved to warrior stage. And warrior stage is like one guy has the power, one guy has the truth. So it's that person's interpretation. And then when the king started getting killed, they finally realized we got to have something larger than ourselves. And so it moved to a text, right? The text has the power, the text has the truth. And that text can be the Constitution, that text can be the Bible, the text can be whatever it is we want or deem it to be. And it has the truth. Occasionally you'll hear people leveraging the Bible. I'm just throwing all that out to say to you, typically, again, the people who talk the most about truth are usually the ones who know the littlest about truth. So anytime I keep hearing the word truth, all the red flags are going off for me. Are you trying to convince us it's true? And then it leads to the question, how do we even know if it is true? So I'll give you an example, okay? And are we feeling okay? That's a little heavy. We're going to get to the flesh and blood of it in just a second. Because when you talk about truth, it can get so ethereal and abstract and absolute truth. And we did a series years ago on it, and Katie told me to never do it again. She's like, that's the worst series you've ever done in your life. I'm like, thanks. And she's like, and that's the truth. I'm like, is it the truth or is that your truth? Okay. Here's an example of people using truth or the Bible to get their ideology validated, all right? Remember, it's an authority, all right? So here's an example. Notice how many times you have heard, and I'm not just picking any politician. I'm using this example because it's prevalent for us right now. But notice how a politician or politicians, some of them claim that the Bible must inform our laws. Have you heard this before? The Bible must inform our laws, okay? Okay, take note of that. But then notice this, okay? Notice how it's always the Bible must inform our laws until it comes to welcoming the immigrant, helping the poor, feeding the hungry, bringing health care to the sick, forgiving debts, caring for our planet, laying down our weapons, and loving our neighbors. Do you catch what I'm saying here? Anytime you hear a politician stand up and claim all the time, nope, we got to get back to the Bible. We got to get back to the Bible. Wonderful. I think this is great. Wonderful. Because there are some beautiful things within the Bible. I think that's great. But let's make sure that if we do it, how about this? Here's a thought. Look, what if we did it all? What if we did it all? Well, that's inconvenient for some of us. I mention that to you because when Paul says love doesn't rejoice in wrongdoing, it rejoices in the truth. And when you're living in a time where you throw out a tweet that just says love is the most powerful force on the planet, it can soften the hardest heart when someone's like, I don't like that. I don't think love's that way. Actually, you need truth with that love. And that's the problem with churches like yours, is you rejoice in the wrongdoing of others, and what you need is more truth. And I would just pause and I would just say this. Paul is not contrasting love with truth here. Let's be clear. Paul is not contrasting love and truth. Notice what Paul says here. Paul says love does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices in the truth. Paul is not pitting love against truth. Love is not the enemy of truth. Truth is not the enemy of love. Love is not the opposite of truth. In fact, there is no tension at all with Paul in 1 Corinthians 13 between truth and love, because they cannot be separated. In fact, arguably what Paul is saying in 1 Corinthians 13 is that love is not the opposite of truth. Love is the highest form of truth. Love is truth, and truth is love. They overlap and intersect with each other. They are one in the same. Paul is not contrasting them or saying they're opposites or saying you need both. Paul is saying love, the kind of love that I am talking about, agape love. This love that is indescribable, this love that I've had some experiences with, this love that exceeds all of our cultural barriers and boundaries, this love that is patient, this love that is kind, this love that is fully present in this moment, that has the power to soften the hardest hearts. This love is not opposed to truth. It is, in essence, the highest form of truth. And so anytime, thank you, anytime you run into someone who tries to pit love against truth, you can walk away from the conversation in that moment. And here's why I say that. Not because you don't love the person you're talking to, but because you understand a fundamental principle that the individual you're talking to has a misunderstanding of what love really is. And that's not a knock on them. Maybe you could be the experience in that moment to help them understand what agape love actually is. Maybe that love could flow through you to them in that moment, because it's clear they have like a flowers and hearts kind of love, which is great. But what they don't understand is what Paul is talking about, and that is perfect love. This love that drives out all fear. It doesn't stand against truth. It's its highest form, truth. So when those two are separated, then that's a fundamental misunderstanding of what we mean when we talk about love. No. That's what it's not. How about a little bit to what Paul is getting at here? He uses an interesting word here that I love. Adakia is the actual Greek phrase. And it literally is the A is not, all right? And dikia is justice. Of course it would be, right? So check out what Paul is saying. Paul is saying it's not justice, or the opposite of justice. He uses this word that he uses, truth, is aletheia, which literally translates as justice. But check this out. It's justice in the sense of right standing with the divine and with others. So, again, when Paul says love doesn't rejoice in wrongdoing, it rejoices in truth, what Paul is literally saying, like Greek translation, Paul is saying love doesn't rejoice in injustice. Love rejoices in justice. Wow. Now this takes on all new meaning when you remember the context. And what is happening? If justice is right standing or right relationship with the divine and right relationship with others, well, that gets a little bit personal when you have a collective that can't agree on anything, right? So imagine how hard that hits the heart a little bit when Paul's well, people, I don't know how to tell you this, but the kind of love that I'm talking about does not rejoice in the way that you're demonizing each other. The kind of love that I'm talking about rejoices when you work toward the right standing with the divine and right standing with others. The kind of love that I'm talking about does not rejoice in injustice. The kind of love that I'm talking about rejoices when there's justice. And Paul, whoever was reading it, probably read that line, paused, and was like, parenthetical note, he's just speaking this truth in love. Because I would imagine it's like, whoa. Because just don't remember, there are actual lawsuits flying around in the collective. Like this guy's suing this guy, and this lady's suing this lady, and they can't agree on anything, and they're fighting each other over theological beliefs. It's utter chaos. And Paul's like, I just want to remind you of something. This love, yeah, it's about like right standing with the divine and with others. The truth here, when he uses this phrase, is not some abstract belief in our heads. Every time we talk about truth, I think the reason lots of us lose ourselves in it is because it's so abstract. It's like, I don't know philosophy, so I can't talk about truth. It all feels a little washy to me, and it can be so abstract. But when Paul uses the word truth here, he's not talking about it in some abstract idea or belief in our heads. He's talking about behavior, okay? He's talking about living out this love. What he is literally talking about is the idea that how you live your life is what Paul defines as truth. So, paraphrase, you can tell me all day long what you believe about politics. You can tell me all day long what you believe about God, the Bible, Jesus, whatever. All those things are great. I am not saying beliefs don't matter. They absolutely do. But what Paul is getting at here is he's going, far more than what you say you believe. When I'm talking about love, I'm talking about how you live your life. I'm talking less about what you believe, and I'm talking more about how you believe it. So I have people all the time tell me, I believe this, I believe this, I believe this, I believe this. Great, wonderful. Give me a month to watch your life, and then come back and I'll tell you what you actually believe. Because our beliefs are not what we say. Our beliefs are what we do. You understand that? You can tell me all day long you don't believe something's going to happen, but you'll only really know if you believe it in the moment, right? So God forbid a shooter comes in right now and you're like, I'm just telling you, I don't believe if I had a cover, it would protect me. But you watch me if one comes in and I go, yeah. That's what I really believe. That's what I really... And so what Paul is saying is just watch your life. Because you all are arguing about like all these ideas of theology. And Paul's saying, watch your life. Because love does not rejoice in living a life in a particular way that leads to injustice and wrongdoing. Love rejoices in the truth. And when I say truth, I mean a life that is in sync with the divine and with one another. And so, Jared Bias went on to write this. I love this. He said, I think part of the answer is to start believing that how we believe reveals our love just as much, if not more, than what we believe. We have privileged the what of our belief instead of the how of our belief. And whether we like it or not, the content of our belief, insofar as it stays in our brains, makes zero impact on the people around us. How we interact and embody our beliefs is ultimately what matters. Can we go back to that one? How we interact and embody our beliefs is ultimately what matters. And so, you and I will know the truth by its actions. So you're like me? Because we're living in the same America, I think. I've flipped through, and I'm like, whoa. I don't know what to believe anymore with some of this. Is it true? Is it not true? Did it happen? Did it not happen? And I do grieve a little bit that we even live in a society where all this is even possibility. Do you know what I mean? You ever grieve a little bit? Grieve a little bit going, how did we get here? But then I kind of realize, okay, grieve, have your moment, and then accept what is. Because if you, as Byron Katie says, if you argue with reality, reality wins every time. So I pause, I accept what is, and then I start going, what's my metric? What is my metric? Anytime I'm looking at something and I'm not sure anymore, what is my metric? I can give you a metric that Jesus uses and that Paul uses. They both use it. And I know you've heard it before, but I'll come back to it because I think there's a reason they both use it. And what is that metric? Paul, Jesus both says, you will know the truth by its fruit. If I want to know your truth, I don't listen to what you say, I look at what you do. For Jesus and Paul, the criteria of truth was the fruit that it bears. Love is the ultimate metric of truth. If you're not sure if something is true, look at its leaves, look at its branches, look at what it is producing and ask yourself. Paul writes it in Galatians, fruits of the Spirit. Is it producing, check it out, the metric of love? Joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. What I have learned is love does not delight in wrongdoing, even against one's enemies. And I'll pause here and ask a hard question for all of us. Have you ever delighted in the downfall of your enemy? Love doesn't dehumanize. Love does not see those who wrong us as monsters or animals, but as sacred beings. And loving the oppressed and the marginalized without resorting to hatred for the oppressor is hard work. But I remind you, love has no us in them. Love is present in the moment. And anytime you're there and you're confused about what the truth is, look for the love. Look for the love. This is my new mantra right now. And actually, it's kind of working. I'll hear about something or even talking to people that are going through some relational disasters. Look, I just don't know what to do anymore. And I'm like, look for the love. And I'll help you. Look for the love. Where is it? I can assure you it's present. There is not a place where it's not. There is not a place where love is absent. It is present. And so what if we all as a collective started looking for the love? You will find it. Because remember, what you look for, you will find. So I know this isn't easy. I know it isn't easy. Some of you are like, I kind of wish I hadn't come today. I know. What is that old statement? The truth we need to hear the most is usually the truth we hate the most. You know what I'm talking about? I know. Or one writer said the truth we need to hear is usually the truth which men prefer not to hear. You know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, yep, I know. Okay. Let me tell you what the ego loves. We're just speaking from experience, and then I'm going to share a story, and then we're out of here. That's it. You all did it. Great. I love it. Okay. Here's what the ego loves. The ego loves to use truth. Oh God, we're getting in levels here because now I'm talking about me. Okay. The ego loves to find or use what we understand as truth, cling to it to bolster itself. That it is right. We are right. They are wrong. Have you ever felt that before? Is there a greater drug than being right? I think I might be addicted to it. And turns out, my God, I'm always on the right side. You know what I'm talking about? Always. Very few occasions have I been on the wrong side. Ask my wife; she'll tell you. I'm always on the side of right. I'm always on the side of truth. Always. I land there. All right? My ego loves being right. This is why when I look at social media, can we pull back to like Eckhart Tolle level? All I'm looking at is a bunch of egos. Remove the person and the medium. Just remove for a minute because that's all neutral anyways. All right? Look at it. If you look at it, in online squabble, it's just all egos until someone finally either gives up because they're exhausted or they're like, boom, God, I'm right. Congratulations. here's where it gets like really interesting. My ego loves it. And so it draws to it. So what I'll do is I'll latch hold of something that makes me right, and then I'll pull it in and be like, this is the truth. Boom, did you hear that? Authority, I'm using that. Anytime you hear the word truth, that's an authority word. Or, yeah, this is what the Bible says. Boom, truth, boom. Okay? Just a bunch of egos trying to build themselves up. But when you know who you are, like who you actually are, you don't need any of that stuff. Because you're not trying to bolster yourself up. It's no longer about you. No, there's conversations to have about it being for other people, but it's no longer about you winning arguments or not winning arguments. What you find is when you operate out of this love, you somehow intuitively know. Look for the love. And so sometimes I'll watch people and the egos are fighting. Where's the love? And I'll start looking and I'm like, each. And usually, check this out, it's somebody off in the corner somewhere who's not saying anything. Or it's someone off in the corner who's doing it in a way that's so creative, the mind can't even comprehend it. Do you know what I'm talking about? Sometimes you have to look for the love, and what you'll find is it's not being announced on social media. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you have to get in flesh and blood in spaces like this. You're like, there it is. There's the love. Look for the love. It's somewhere. Look for it. You'll find it. You'll find voices speaking up, and you're like, that's it. That's it. That's the love. Just the other day, Katie and I were watching something, and some governor stood up and was saying something, and someone asked him a question. Well, what if so-and-so from this camp felt this way? What would you do about that? And she said something, and I was like, the love. She paused, and she said, I'd never heard a politician say this. Never have I heard a politician. And I was like, it actually brought me a lot of hope. She said, well, I'll tell you what I'd do. She said, I would sit down with that individual and I would say, what brought you here? I'm here to listen. How did you arrive at this ideology? And how can I help? I was like, oh, deep listening. Thich Nhat Hanh, love. I want look for the love. It's there. And we don't know what the truth is. Look at its fruit and look for the love. Okay, now I want to read you a story, and then we're done. We're out of here. You guys have been amazing. Okay, this is from Jared Byas' book, and again, I'm going back to this point of looking for the love. Okay, he wrote this little section in one of his final chapters, and it's called Ku Klux Clowns. Okay, and I want to share the story with you, and I think you'll get the idea of maybe what Paul's getting at. One of my favorite stories of treating our enemies with love or looking for love comes from another white supremacist rally held in a park in downtown Knoxville, Tennessee on May the 26th, 2007. He said, just like in Charlottesville, this rally attracted about 30 supporters and about 60 people who wanted to protest the rally. Rather than turning violent, these protesters used a different tactic. Okay? They showed up as clowns. They showed up specifically as the Ku Klux Clowns, a troop of clowns who marched into the rally on stilts and unicycles, complete with clown makeup, colorful wigs, and red noses. They pretended to be in favor of the rally, but kept misunderstanding the chant, quote, white power. First, they thought the people were chanting white flour. So, the clowns proceeded to pull out bags of flour, and they playfully threw fistfuls of flour at each other. The attention quickly turned from the rally itself to the wonderful spectacle of these clowns. One of the clowns then pointed out that they had been getting it wrong again and suggested it wasn't white flour, it was white flowers. And so they began to chant white flowers while running around to give everything they met a white flower. And on it went from white flower to tight shower. and ending with another group of clowns dressed in wedding dresses yelling "wife power." It disrupted the rally so much that it refocused the attention of the day on connection and love. It was so impactful that someone there wrote a story as a children's book titled "White Flower." The author, David Lamotte, also wrote a poem in this book about the experience, which he ends with these words: "And what would be the lesson of that shiny southern day? Can we understand the message that the clowns sought to convey? Seems that when you're fighting hatred, hatred's not the thing to use. So here's to those who march on in their big red floppy shoes." I really like this story for many reasons, but one of the main reasons may not be so obvious. It's that love takes work. Responding to hatred with hatred is easy, but finding ways to love the oppressed and marginalized without resorting to hatred for the oppressor is harder than you and I might imagine. So, may that be true of us. May today we not just look for the love, but check it out. May today we embody the love. May we be a small collective in Mableton, Georgia, in the midst of all the chaos. May we be the ones in the midst of the chaos, embodying agape love to the world. Because I'm telling you, there's not a lot I believe in my life, but bank on it. Love will transform the world. I still believe love will actually win this thing. And so, until it's fulfilled, until it's done, until it's complete, we do what we do. And that is we open ourselves up and we say, "Love, transform me, and then work through me to help transform the world."